Hey everybody, it's Michelle. I am excited to be here, and I am going to be talking a little bit about the 6 steps of event marketing that I use with my clients. That way we can take any sort of revenue-driven event and convert that expense, any sort of investment that they're putting in, and actually make sure that they're getting an ROI. So I've been meeting a lot of people in my network recently, and they know my background is event planning. A lot of times they ask, oh, you do corporate events, are you an event planner? A lot of times the easy answer is yes. That's a lot of what I do. A lot of event planning is the logistics. Logistics is one step of an entire event process. And so I want to first off clarify, but also get on here because there are a lot of people in my network, they're using events to be seen, to get their company out there, to get their brand out there, and they're wondering why they're not seeing results. They're not really understanding that making things happen and logistically making them happen and go smooth may or may not be the answer as to why things may or may not be working to actually close some business, attract the right business. This is really understanding the business side of events and how I went from event planner to event strategist and what that actually looks like. Today I'm just doing a high level. What are those 6 steps that I do? As I get further into creating these videos, I will dive deeper and deeper into each of those 6 steps and how I do that for my clients, so that you can take that and hopefully this helps some other people that may not be working with me on a corporate level, but you can absolutely apply it into your own plan. So I'm going to first, at a high level, go through and just spit them out, all 6 steps. So here we are, write them down. First thing is strategy. Second, logistics. Third thing is outreach and networking. Fourth is nurturing. Fifth is sales. And 6th is your metrics. I'm going to repeat that, and then I'll just dive slightly today into what each of those mean. So again, those 6, before I dive a little deeper, for event marketing that you want to consider, you have strategy, logistics, outreach and networking, the nurturing, your sales, and your metrics. Those are the 6 steps as to how I help my clients take their events and any expense that if you follow these 6 steps, then you can start to identify what's working, what's not working, and so that you can track and actually gain an ROI from doing event marketing. If this is something of interest, if you're a business owner or you work in corporate and it's maybe your responsibility to be seen in the world and you're trying all these other marketing efforts and they're just not working, then I'd be happy to explain and we can create more videos and education. Again, strategy, logistics, outreach, nurturing, sales, and metrics. And today is just a very high level of what they mean. I'm not going into how you do that. I'm not saying who the experts are yet for today. I'm just explaining what it is. And then if this is a series that you like, make sure that you continue to watch me live. Strategy is the phase where you're getting into what are the objectives and how can you set those goals. The easiest way that I do this with my clients is to understand the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why details of the event. When you choose to do event marketing, so whether it's trade shows, you're sponsoring for events, or you're putting on an event, there's 2 different ends of the spectrum. There's somebody that puts on the event, and then there are sponsors and exhibitors to support the event. Typically, I'm on the end that is supporting the exhibitors and sponsors. I find that there's a huge break in the industry where there are so many event planners, there are so many strategic companies out there helping these organizers make their event the best event. But what's happening is it takes a lot to bring on sponsors and attendees and exhibitors, and what happens is they may get an exhibitor kit that's full of these logistics right here, but what happens is if there's not support or understanding how your sponsors and attendees and exhibitors will make the most out of their event at your event, it's very, very difficult to get them to come again, and that retention. And now you're, instead of in a growth mode, now you're trying to retain them to come back again. So again, there's two different sides, but the cycle is the same. The execution will be different whether you're an event organizer or planner, or in my case, I'm typically hired by the sponsors and the exhibitors so that they can actually make an ROI at their event. But either way, both ends need to at least start with a strategy. Is this even an event that makes sense attending or organizing? So if you're a sponsor, who you're attracting, what you are offering, kind of why you're there is going to be different than if you're the organizer of the event. So I have a pretty thorough process that I use with people that are interested in having an event or working with me. And if we don't make it past that strategy session, if we don't make it past that, identifying what the objectives are and who we're attracting, it may or may not make sense to actually put on the event or to attend the event or to sponsor the event. I'll give you a great example. I have an event coming up in November, and just the sponsorship package is $15,000. $15,000 plus all the expenses of the company, the people to go. So this company is interested in basically advertising for $15,000 plus all the expenses, plus all the marketing and everything leading up to it. So we need to understand what are they selling, what's the margin, because if they don't have a product that they can recoup that and all the expenses, it may or may not make sense. Now we've already made it past that stage, it does make sense, but are you in an industry where what's your break-even point? How many connections do you need to make? Because more times than not, you're not going to the event to make an immediate sale. We need to discuss what is that break-even point and what are the objectives, and does it make sense to even attend or to be the top sponsor or maybe have a booth for $1,000. So strategy number one, how we execute that will be for another day. Number two is logistics. This is where my career started. This is where many people think of events and event planning. This is how things are going to happen on paper. And so the event planners are making sure that your shipments are where they need to be, that breakfast is coming out on time, that the speakers are where they need to be. So this is the execution of the event itself. I consider this all the logistics. This also includes creating any sort of marketing material. So if you need a marketing team, or if you have a marketing team in-house, you're actually logistically making sure that you have everything that you need to put on this event. Regardless if you make a sale or not, you need to show up and you need to have all the things set in place. Those are logistics. A lot of times this is where event planners stop. This is where a lot of times companies are seeing, okay, we're here, we show up. And so what I do is I remind people there is a full event cycle. And to follow that cycle, that's how you're going to actually be able to measure, is it successful? Is there an ROI? How do we do that? And that's where the bridge from the marketing team and now your sales team and your client retention team and your onboarding team, and all of these things come together. So sometimes when you're at these events, you're meeting potential prospects, people that may be interested in purchasing or doing business with you directly. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is networking. Many events are most beneficial for the networking aspect, and a lot of times the people that you're meeting may not be your ideal client, but you're still outreaching and you're still networking with them to create strategic partnerships. And so depending on who's at the event and understanding who you're talking to, that's what the outreach is all about. And so you want to understand your target audience, but also understand who you're talking to. One thing that I always say is whether you're business to business, business to consumer, events are people to people connections. And a lot of times these events are not the place necessarily to pitch your sale. You're outreaching and you're building that network. So I'll give you a great example. I went out to Chicago in July. Now that client is in New York City. Their ideal client is really only in New York City. So then it becomes a matter of, well, why would I go to Chicago if my ideal client is in New York City? And the answer is, we're part of an association, we're building our relationships around the country, and around the country, those people have connections and branches directly in Manhattan. That's why they chose to send me out to Chicago, even though it was not expected to bring a direct client necessarily back. Yes, that would be nice, but understanding who is there, given the nature of the type of event, you want to understand how you're networking and how you're speaking to these people. So if they're potential clients, are they, that's a little different than speaking to your strategic partners and your networking partners. So understanding that and who you're reaching to, a big thing here, and what I push is to start this before the event. We all have heard that it takes 7 to 10 touches of marketing. You don't want that handshake at the event to be the first interaction. It's going to happen. Of course you will meet new people, but if you can identify who your target is and who you want to meet ahead of time, and typically if you're a sponsor, especially a large sponsor, if you're paying any sort of investment, that's why they give you the list of the exhibitors and the people. You're not spamming them. That is not the place to spam out a whole email blast. You can let people know, hey, you'll be at this booth, but you want to actually target, whether that's 10, 15, or 20% of the people. Identify who you want to meet and outreach, and do it ahead of time. So we're starting that process for when I go to New Orleans in October. We're starting that process now, reaching out to them directly. That way the outreach and the networking happens, and by the time we see them in person and we have an appointment set, it's not the first touch. That's very hard to then start a process, because then it may take a year. It may take until next event for you to make that relationship. So nurturing kind of goes hand in hand. This is my sweet spot as well. I love nurturing. If you know me, really only about 3% of the population is ready to move forward at any given time of whatever you're offering, whatever it is. Those are the impulsive, those are, ads, those are things. If you absolutely need something at that given time, the other 97% of people need to be nurtured. And this is something that in event marketing is the process that needs to happen, so that you can go from a cold lead or a cold partnership and start building up that trust and start building up that credibility, and now they're in the warm area. And how quickly can we get them from cold to warm to hot to convert? So that nurturing process is critical. That's a huge part that I see a break in the funnel. I call it a leaky funnel. So these are things that I look for in companies before we even attend the event. How are we doing that? Do we have a sequence set up? Who's doing the touch points? What are the touch points? And again, you're treating prospects slightly different than strategic partners. So then we have your sales. this is another aspect that I've been in sales. I am not a salesperson other than my own products and services, but I understand the process. I've been in sales, and the difference is you have prospecting and outreach, and you have sales. And what I find a lot of times, our companies have one of two models. Either their sales team are also doing the outreach, networking, prospecting, nurturing, and sales, and the closing, or you have the marketing team that takes kind of the outreach, the networking, the nurturing, the warming them up, and then it gets passed off. And there is some point in time in that funnel that it goes from a marketing team, hands off to a salesperson, and that salesperson is now responsible to close the deal. So right or wrong, those are two basic models that I've seen, that I work with, that what I find is you can have a wonderful salesperson that is great with closing, but they don't know how to prospect and how to nurture. They just dive right in. We've all experienced that. They're a great salesman, but they're not doing the nurturing and the sequence. But on the flip side, you have someone that is great at prospecting and getting them through the funnel, but they're a horrible closer. So then you go through that and there's no sales. So understanding where the leaks are in the sales, whether it's your sales team, maybe it's your CRM, maybe you don't have any sort of process. If you're using sticky notes as far as like your CRM, we should talk. At least get a spreadsheet going. But understanding how your company and your sales team, and which process is it? What are the responsibility of marketing and what is it of sales? And that's why I see a lot of gap and a lot of confusion and a lot of frustration between sales and marketing. Now, when I was in corporate, we worked extremely well, at least in my division. Us in marketing, I had a marketing committee that included salespeople because we had to close that gap as where is the handoff, and that handoff may be at a different part of the process. And then metrics. Metrics are so critical to know what's working and what's not working. I don't care if you're throwing spaghetti at the wall or not and seeing what sticks, but if you don't even know what's sticking or not, that's where there's a break in that funnel. And so for events, this could be both quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative being how many people are at the event or to your booth, how many business cards. Here's the thing with business cards. I don't care if you have a whole fishbowl of business cards or you had a great raffle. If they're not your target market and if you don't have a nurturing and process, I don't care how many business cards you have because you're not going to get them through at the end of the day. So quantitative being how many and who, and the measurable as far as how much money was your ROI. But there's also qualitative as far as how successful was the event, survey results, and expectations, and how can you make it better on that aspect. So having that is also a critical part, and if you don't have metrics in place, you don't even know what you want to measure, it's very difficult to understand how you can make it better or what the outcome was. So I know that's a lot. And what happens a lot of times is I find this is going on. Yeah. So first off, it's blurry. You don't have a full sense of what's going on, and maybe you have kind of an idea that you should be doing some sort of pre-planning. You kind of know what's going on with the logistics, but then you jump over here and you say, oh my gosh, like we don't have a sales team, and oh no, like we got to go back and create some sort of outreach, and who are we? It's just all over the place. So what I help companies do is first off understand that there is a full cycle. Second off, bring that clarity to say how do we go from each step and make sure that it's working together. What I find is my specialty, what I love are events. In the past, and what I've really limited myself is you can take this and the same principles and apply it to your entire marketing plan. I am not a marketing coach at all. And this is where I've had to draw the line recently, is companies that do events is one thing and we're following the process, but if we start branching out into a full marketing plan, that's where we need to bring on a marketing coach and or a business coach. You do events, in the community, or you're out there and you go to find out that you have a great onboarding process, but there may be other things going on in the business, or maybe it's staffing, or maybe it's your processes. Processes are a big thing. Processes are not really my forte. That's where we seek out my inner circle, and I have references in each of these areas that if we're looking outside of an event, even though those areas need to be addressed and fixed, that's where I can bring on my inner circle. That's where we may realize, hey, if it's broken for your event part of the process, chances are your sales is also broken for your entire marketing plan. So what I do is I take companies that go to events, that want to streamline their events, go from here and find that clarity to here. That's that. So I'm gonna go back to this screen, which is funny. I hope that was helpful and gave a pretty good understanding of a full marketing process when it comes to events. How you do that and how we execute, that's where you're going to want to reach out to me. Whatever type of event, typically what I do is the revenue generating events, so awareness events or music festivals or those sort of recreational events are, I'm not necessarily the organizer of the event. Now I can help the organizer make sure that they actually are gaining that ROI, but a lot of times I'm actually working on behalf of the sponsors, or I partner with the organizer to help their 30, 40, 50 sponsors to understand that process so that they can actually retain those sponsors at the end of the day. I am so happy to start taking my brain dump and just getting it out to the network. This is what I do with my corporate clients. I'm really excited just to share the process, because it's not a matter of the process on the paper, it's the strategy and how we actually execute it is where the value comes in. So some people are, they're like, Michelle, why would you just give that away? Well, it doesn't do anything if it's just sitting on your screen. I need to actually explain it to people and identify how your event is different and customize it. And that's where I've been doing that for 8 years. And what I've cut out is where that process has stepped out of scope into marketing as a genre. I focus specifically my cycle with event marketing. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. If not for you, but you know someone that does events, if you know an event planner, that could be really helpful information, because again, I went from event planning and logistics to understanding the entire scope, and that's how event planners can really add more value to their clients. And actually, I'm working with other planners to not book more events, but better events, I say. So if you're taking your scope of work and you're not taking on more events, but you're offering more to the cycle, that's where the value really comes. So anyway, if anyone wants that diagram, I'm more than happy to share it with them, stick it on your wall, whatever it may be. But anyway, I hope that was helpful for some people in the marketing and event world, and maybe that clarified to some people not really understanding what I do and don't do. But anyway, I gotta run, and I hope that was a helpful tidbit of tonight, and I will jump on later on this week. Make sure to comment below and subscribe. Follow us also on Instagram for more tips of what your sponsors actually want at your next event.